Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is the Predator Management in Fremont County update with Jared and Matt.
So, my name is Jared Zierenberg. I'm the new state director for Wyoming Wildlife Services. Just found out about this meeting yesterday, so we threw a quick presentation together. Mac is going to kind of go over more of Fremont County specific stuff, but what I wanted to do is kind of go over our agency and kind of what we do outside of Fremont County. So I just got kind of a quick USDA overview, show you some of the other projects the Wildlife Services participates with and is part of. If I get quiet, just tell me to speak up a little, or you guys can move up. This is kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different PowerPoints, so if I've got some duplicate slides, I apologize. I tried to run through them and that. But with that, we'll get started, and then at the end, we'll have Matt kind of give a Fremont County update. Wildlife Services, who are we? My mom, she still thinks I work for the Fish and Game or the Game and Fish, but I don't. We're not the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We're an independent government agency that works for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. These are some of the folks that we partner with, from tribal to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, BLM, Forest Service. Our mission is to provide federal leadership in managing conflicts with wildlife. And these conflicts can take all kinds of different shapes and that. Our goal is to kind of improve the coexistence of people and wildlife and stop the damage that the wildlife is causing towards our economic interest in agriculture. Okay. We're not regulatory. We can't write tickets, can't get people in trouble. Basically, we're here to provide a service. Our primary authority comes from Congress, and it gives us the authority to conduct a program of wildlife services with respect to injurious species. So bears, mountain lions, even birds at times can be injurious to the public. For example, the bird strike that happened, Miracle on the Hudson, when a plane flew into a flock of geese. Our agency actually got called out to help with that. And we'll go through some of that as I go through this. We can work on federal, state, and private lands and that. We also have a research arm with the National Wildlife Research Center and the field stations that go over new methods to help protect livestock or to manage some of these conflicts. Our agency is a little bit different than most federal government agencies. We receive some federal funding, but the majority of our funding actually comes from the people that we're serving, from the cooperators. That's why we enter into a county program here in Fremont County and across much of Wyoming. Wyoming's funding sources are a little bit different than this graph shows. We get a little bit more federal funding because groups like ASI, the Wyoming wool growers, they went to Congress and lobbied for money to come our direction for predator control and to help the ag industry. We try to do what's called integrated wildlife damage management, and it starts off with we receive a request. For example, say Alan calls us and says, "Hey, I'm having lamb losses," or Ivan. Our trapper will kind of assess the problem and ask him, have you done non-lethal methods? Do you have a herder? Stuff like that. They'll go out. If he's done everything he can, still having problems, then the trapper goes out and removes the problem animal. So just you can kind of see the flow chart, how it steps through. Ours is in Wyoming is a little bit more direct, whereas we've been working with the landowners for a long time. We know they're trying everything they can to prevent loss of their flocks. So when that call comes into the trapper gets dispatched right away. There's no real delay there. Other types of service that we provide, we do property damage, we help protect agriculture, work with human health and safety. This picture down in the bottom corner, anybody recognize what that is or know what it is?
Turtle eggs.
Okay, you got turtle eggs, okay. We help protect natural resources, whether it's trying to enhance the mule deer here in Wyoming, or protect the black-footed ferret, and kind of enhance their population. I'll go over just a few of them. The main one that everybody's familiar with here in Wyoming is the agricultural and livestock protection. In Wyoming, it looks a little bit more like this, and that we're primarily protecting cattle and sheep. We do that through a number of different methods. Our trappers employ calling and shooting. This is down in Arizona. Wyoming looks a little bit more like this most of the time. This coyote here is proof for my wife that I actually call in coyotes. She went out with me. She wanted to see me call in a coyote. Called. She's sitting right next to me. I look over and there's a coyote sitting there looking at us. And she didn't see it the whole time. Unfortunately, that one got away. And the good thing is we have Mason and that to help back us up. We have the aerial operations that help with the coyote control. Other methods we employ are trapping. I am not the world's greatest trapper, but at one time I did catch one coyote. I lied. I actually do pretty good, but this was early on in my career. The reason I put this slide in here is this coyote. I caught it by the hind foot, and the hole that I'm sitting in right here, he dug in a night. It took me, I don't know, better half of the day to fill it back in. Every once in a while I do get lucky though. Catch a few. Here's that hole. You can see the coyote next to the fence post and then how much he had dug out. That's what happens when you catch him by the hind foot. We also do lion work. This next picture was from Arizona. One of the things that Mac will talk about is kind of the wolf depredation that we have and the work that we do on those. We're in charge of doing the necropsies when we get called out, documenting wolf losses, wolf damage and that, along with the game and fish, who are also our partners. Okay. Another dead sheep picture. That was not a wolf, that was a coyote. We also do property protection, and this can take a lot of different forms. It can be, clearing out culverts that beavers have plugged up. It can be hog damage, trying to stop that rooting and that. All of that in this front yard here was from a hog in one night, and they can do acres and acres of that in the right kind of ground if it's soft enough. We get called out to remove nests from oil field structures and that, so that their operations can continue. Also cell towers and stuff like that. Another big one, we get a lot of bird damage that happens in the Intermountain West. We get huge flocks of starlings, ravens, crows that do damage. Wildlife Services often gets called out to help with that. We have a poison that's called the ERC 1339 that helps us to remove starlings and feedlots, dairy barns, and that's a little pile of starlings. Also with birds, we get called out at airports, not so much in Wyoming, but in some of the other states nationwide, to help with human health and safety issues. We do a lot of airport wildlife hazard management. So when the birds get really thick on the runways, they have us go and haze them away. We don't have any airports that we're currently working in Wyoming, but some of the other states, we do quite a bit. It doesn't mean that we don't have the hazards. As you travel through Wyoming, you'll see a lot of geese in the fields. Right here in the back, you can see a plane. This was taken actually in Washington, but if you go around Casper or up above Cody, by Powell, you'll see flocks and flocks of geese like this. And the reason that we work with these animals is, again, our charge is to help with wildlife damage management. Hitting a goose or other birds can cause a lot of damage to planes. This bottom picture, you can see the wild turkey legs hanging out of the back of this plane. This was a plane that hit a flock of wild turkeys. Doesn't fare good for the wildlife or for people. There've been loss of life associated. They call us in to kind of keep those airspaces, at least the landing and the approach and takeoff areas clear from birds. Some of the more unique projects that I've helped with on airports, early in my career in Washington, they had me climb trees, band raptors, and kind of see where they were going. You see this fat guy right there in the tree. That thing was swaying back and forth. You could feel it. I still had another 20 feet to the nest. Then once I got up to the nest, I was faced with this red tail that thought she needed to fight for her babies, and she did a good job. But with a little stick, I was able to kind of hold her back, get the eggs, get the babies. We were able to relocate those off of the airfield. That I did live. So did the babies. I've worked a little bit with the airports early on, but after that it was mostly livestock for the last 20 years. I did throw in a few slides of some of the raptors that we've released. These were taken by Mike Smith, who now helps out with the eagle depredations up here in Wyoming. He donates his time as a falconer. He comes all the way up from Vernal, Utah, to kind of help trap and relocate eagles that are on the landing grounds. Mike's a good friend of mine. He's also into photography, like Alan. This was a double. You can't see it, but there's a pigeon in between these two birds, and he's set on a noose carpet. So you got all these little loops, like little fishing line loops, and when the birds come in to get the pigeon, they get caught in those nooses, and then we go and take and relocate them. This is some of the work on the airports. We also try to find out, as part of that integrated damage management, we try to find out what's causing, what's drawing the hawks there, and how do we not attract hawks to airports. So we end up doing prey-based studies. Here I'm setting mouse traps out just to kind of get a sampling of what kind of prey we have in the area. It's a lot of work to bait 500 mouse traps, and a lot of peanut butter. They also have us do things like deer removal on airports. Little mule deer, white-tailed deer, and then this is a piebald deer. If you look at its belly, you can see kind of that weird white pattern. That's not normal in whitetails. Kind of a rarity. Threw that in there. Through the airport programs, a lot of times we find new technologies to use, and then we later put those out into the field with livestock. One of the early on technologies that we're looking at was the use of thermal equipment. Now it's pretty routine for our guys to use thermal equipment out in the field removing coyotes. This is a group of deer on the airport. As we were looking at these deer, we spotlighted them, and we could see like 8 deer, and then we looked with the thermal, and we ended up counting 19 that we couldn't see. So that thermal really does open things up to us. That one's kind of hard to see, but that's a porcupine up in a tree. That one we sat there for 15 minutes shining the spotlight, trying to figure out where that thing was. but it just the way the light reflected off his hair, it looked like just branches up there until he finally moved, and then all of a sudden your eye, I could fixate on it. But with the thermal, we were able to pick that up really quick. We also do a lot of natural resource protection. Down here in the bottom corner, you'll see the black-footed ferret. This is near Meeteetse, Wyoming. Our agency is kind of charged with helping recover some of these species, and we get called in to help out. I've removed coyotes, across the west for black-footed ferret protection as well as livestock protection. I've also been out to the Aleutian Islands to help remove non-native Arctic fox off of those islands to help nesting shorebirds such as these puffins and ground nesting birds. Like I say, our agency isn't just livestock oriented, and that's kind of what I wanted to share today with you. Is there's other things that we also do. Our main focus and our bread and butter is livestock, and for Wyoming, that's where it's at for us. But other areas like in Washington, we may be helping with endangered salmon smolt to keep the hydroelectric dams running, and that provide power to the Intermountain West. If enough salmon can't make it past those dams, get up and spawn, and then return back, then they ask to remove the dams. They petition the government to do that. So one of the things USDA helps with is helping more salmon smolt past those dams. This is John Day Dam. This is the Fish Ladder, Dallas Dam. Problem with these dams is the fish, as they're migrating upstream, they run into that, and sea lions swim all the way up from the ocean and attack the salmon, the adult salmon. They end up getting eaten before they can ever reproduce. And then on the way back downstream, the baby salmon that are trying to get through, man has created a big natural lake above it, and these salmon, or the big impoundments, are better areas for pike minnow, which is a predatory fish on the salmon smolt. This fish right there is a minnow, but it weighs 10 pounds. You can see a salmon smolt hanging out of his mouth. This is one of the more unique projects that early on I also helped with. You can see pike minnow, and then in the background, these fish with these bar cuts on them are all salmon smolt that have been regurgitated by the fish that our crews caught. There's a crew of old men that's what they do when they retire, is they go up and they fish for USDA and catch pike minnow and try to lower the age class. A 9-inch pike minnow feeds mostly on little plankton and small stuff, not the big smolt, but once it gets above 9 inches, then they start feeding on the smolt. At first, the dam operators, they were seeing these smolt that would come out from below the dam, where they would end up on the shoreline. They'd see these cuts in them, and they thought it was the turbines that were cutting the fish and that. And so they went through multi-million dollars trying to redesign the turbines in the new dams they were putting in. And then, through us just showing them, it's the pike minnow that they're doing. They've got a pharyngeal plate in their mouth. We were able to save them from having to revamp their turbines. So again, that's the crew. That's one night fishing for pike minnow. That little pile is just some of the small that popped up. Another pile of fish. You don't think of USDA trappers as having boats, but we have Wildlife Services boats out there throughout the nation doing different projects, whether it's nutria or beaver work or the pike minnow project. This was actually a really fun project to work on. You'd fish for pike minnow, try to reduce that age class, but every once in a while you'd hook into something a little bigger. This is my boss at the time. He hooked into that sturgeon. We're not there just to protect the salmon smolt, but also the larger fish. I mentioned this sea lions coming up from the ocean. It's almost 100 miles from the ocean up to Bonneville Dam. But the sea lions would swim up there, the male sea lions would swim up there to fatten up before mating season. and they also like the salmon. Here's one chewing on a king salmon. They also eat the sturgeon that stack up at the bottom of the dam. Just for size reference, most of you know how big of a gull is. This gull is in front of this sturgeon, this little black dot the sea lion has a hold of. That one fin is about the size of a gull. So this, very large sturgeon. Because of the sea lions coming up there and not having salmon to feed on, they started focusing more on the sturgeon, and they'd get the sturgeon packed near the shore. This is a photo from just below the dam, where the sea lions had stacked them in against the shore, and got to see some new behavior that we've never seen before. For the tribes, there's also a concern for the lamprey. They harvest the lamprey and use them in their for food and for some of their ceremonies and that. Again, this is outside of Wyoming, I know, but some interesting things. We were called in. I never thought this would happen in my career, but we were called in to help move sea lions out away from the dam, tag them, send them back to the ocean. So this is capturing a sea lion and transporting them. Unfortunately, the sea lions are very good at navigating their way back. Federal laws prohibited us from just removing them full out. But we did give the salmon a little bit of a reprieve when we moved them. They'd come back each year though. This is just one example of a project that's outside the norm for Wyoming Wildlife Services. We also did wire grids because the birds would come and eat the salmon smolt below the dams. Like I say, it is removed from Wyoming, but a lot of our electricity comes from the Columbia River Basin and that through hydroelectric power. As the salmon smolt go through the dams, they get discombobulated by all the water flow and going through the turbines, and they're easy pickings for the birds. So they have us out there hazing birds off, removing gulls under a federal permit, just to try to get that salmon smolt production up. Again, we put grids in place. You wouldn't think that that would stop a bird, but for whatever reason, gulls won't dive down through that. We can use it at hatcheries here in Wyoming, like if the game and fish ask us to help out. We tell them, okay, you can grid off your ponds to help raise more fish. Got a number of national programs. I'll go over just a few of those real quick. So we've got the National Wildlife Research Center that helps us develop new methods such as the guard dogs. We've checked some of our traps with drones so we don't have to walk clear up the hill. That hasn't been as successful as they had hoped, but we gave it a try for them. Sometimes they have different ideas. They'll help out with the eagle research here in Wyoming. See if we can get some of the eagle depredation down on the lambing herds. We also have a national wildlife disease program where we monitor for different diseases that could affect American agriculture. For example, African swine fever or classical swine fever in the feral swine populations out east. They're really worried about it coming up from the Dominican Republic, who's got an active case down there right now. So we do surveillance in their Virgin Islands, depopulate as many hogs as we can from the Dominican Republic in an international effort, and then they monitor the feral swine in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, all those border states, to keep it out of our domestic swine production. If it gets into the domestic swine production, we won't be able to export swine or ham products to other countries, and that we survey for avian influenza, which is a bird disease, Newcastle disease. We help with chronic wasting disease. We funded 2 studies here in Wyoming with the Wyoming Game and Fish to look at chronic wasting disease and the effect it has on our herds. So, a lot of different things going on. Here at the bottom, you can see that SARS-CoV-2. I actually got to participate in one of the deployments to detect COVID in wildlife. I trapped the first wild mink in the U.S., first known mammal that was positive for COVID. It was trapped around a mink farm, but it had gotten into the wild population in the stream, and it's very lethal to mink. Hurt our mink industry pretty bad. I mean, we had huge die-offs, thousands of animals. So just trying to keep a handle on the disease is important. Back east, they do a lot of rabies work. This little trough in the middle, those are oral rabies baits that they drop out of a helicopter, and they try to make a perimeter around rabies outbreaks. The raccoons go and eat those baits and basically get vaccinated against it. This cow right there, you can see a lesion on its head. That's actually a vampire bat bite. The Texas program, the Florida program, they both monitor for vampire bat bites at the different auction houses, and then test for rabies. We have a national feral swine damage management program. It doesn't really affect Wyoming because we don't have any feral swine, but if we did, we at least have that resource to go to and keep them from getting established in the state of Wyoming. Some of our neighboring states have had feral swine. Idaho and Utah both have had it. I think Colorado's got a small population, but they've been able to kind of keep those suppressed through the efforts. We also participate in emergency response. A lot of our guys are emergency response officials. They can get called out to the fire lines, disease outbreaks, stuff like that. So a lot of variety in what USDA does. Probably more importantly, what you guys have come here for is to hear more about what's happening in Fremont County. Can anybody see the hidden animal in that picture?
Oh, yeah.
You see him? Laying right there. With that, I'll turn it over to Mac and let him kind of go over what's happening in Fremont County, what Wildlife Services is doing here for you.
Hi, my name's Matt Crome. Been in Wildlife Service trapper for 16 or 17 years. Started here about a year and a half ago. Is, I believe, the 5th state I've worked for Wildlife Services in, and definitely have the most support here of anywhere I've ever worked. Really appreciate the state office, local producers, and our predator board. Here in Fremont County, most of, like Jared said, most of our work is livestock predation, cows and sheep. For me, that means mostly coyote work. Mason's our fixed wing pilot. We do a lot, and Tracy Fry's our other trapper and gunner. He's not here today, but most of my time spent chasing the airplane around, finding coyotes for them to shoot. Last year, they took about 900 coyotes in 2023.
Yeah, 970 out of Fremont County.
Okay, yeah, and then I took about 120 on the ground, 130, between shooting and traps and snares. And we removed about 10 dens as well. Other work we get here, the last couple winters and probably for a long time, that's just how long I've been here, there's a lot of corvid work, so ravens and crows. Removed about 11, pretty conservative estimate, would be about 1,100 crows last year off feedlots, and do a lot of raven work for sage grouse protection. A lot of that's done on the landfills around the county. And that also runs into disease control. The reason we're killing the crows on the feedlots is when you have that many crows piled up on feed bumps and water troughs all day, it passes on a lot of diseases. The other, one of the other things to do is beaver work, mostly irrigation ditches, head gates, just removing beavers, flooding those areas. Like last year, we've got about 15 or 20 beavers. It's not a lot, but something that we get a few calls for every summer. And then we do some just nuisance control where it may be skunks or raccoons getting into chicken houses. We get all kinds of calls, but if you have any problems, give my number and feel free to give me a call. The wolf deal, we did, the airplane, they killed 2 wolves last year, both those just north of Lander.
Yeah, just right up above Lander there, but, we've been tracking some packs in the area there, and we watch them pretty regularly, but, nothing this year that's caused a ton of deprivation or anything like that, but we keep a good eye on where they're moving, where they're going, and stuff like that.
I did trap one this fall and got a collar on it, and they've been able to keep up with them. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to get to it yet. We believe that collar, I don't know if another wolf killed that wolf or if somebody shot it or what, but we're not getting the signal we're supposed to get from that collar. So we've been hoping those wolves would move down out of the trees where they could work on them with the aircraft, but they stayed up high with some elk. That's where they're still at as far as I know. There were quite a few guys that came out of the mountains this summer, low on numbers of calves that we assume is wolves. Only had one that we were able to get to it fast enough to confirm it was a wolf kill. That was in land, right outside of Lander. You got any questions? That's about all I have is, I think I even had, were you gonna talk about the bounty?
I can talk about the bounty.
Let's answer questions real quick, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
We got one here in the front.
2 different topics. So one, what is the chronic wasting disease looking for our outlook on our herds in the state of Wyoming currently?
That would be something for Wyoming Fishing Game and Fish. We don't deal much with the.
They show that it's spreading and that, and it's not something that's gonna go away or that they'll be able to remove. It can get into the soil and last for years and years. Part of the National Wildlife Research Center, some of their work, they're trying to find different ways to combat it, and that's another part of USDA. The Wyoming Fish and Game, they're looking at ways to compost roadkill to see if under a high acidic concentration, if they can reduce the number of prions, which is the disease transferred. It's not really a substance, it's a folded protein, but that's getting kind of technical, but it's kind of what transfers it from herd to herd or animal to animal. They're trying to see if under different regimes, if they can cut down on the transmission rate. And they've got a couple other different CWD things they're working on. But it's going to continue to spread. It's going to, a lot of people are looking at it nationally, trying to figure out how to combat it.
Then my other question is, with the wolf release in Colorado, are we expecting to see any increase of elk or wildlife game moving in towards Wyoming, looking at the different herd outlooks on that?
I think we're more worried about the wolves coming north, but as they come north, they hit that Wyoming line, they'll be treated as a predatory animal in the state of Wyoming. Wyoming Game and Fish asked us to, treat them as such. If they're causing degradation, Wildlife Services will help remove those. They're also open fair game to the hunters along that border that encounter them.
One other thing I was gonna mention, talking about natural resources protection, we do have an ongoing project in the Sweetwater Rocks area. The Fish and Game's got a lot of deer collar and doing a study there. They have us removing coyotes there from about the first of the year through fawning season. Last year we removed about 130 coyotes out of that study area.
That's kind of dual benefit for the wildlife of Wyoming and for the livestock owners. A lot of times, we think we're on separate sides of the aisle, but we're really not. If we protect the wildlife Any other questions out there?
What do you guys think on average it costs you to remove a coyote?
The bigger question is how much does it cost if we don't remove that from the livestock owner?
Sure.
You know, how much damage do they continue to do? It all depends on.
But if you had to
method.
put a number on that, what would you guess?
It all depends on the method, and on coyote densities. So if you've got a lot of coyotes, each coyote in that county, you got a better chance of encountering one, so the price per coyote goes down. If you're in a county that doesn't have very many coyotes, it takes a lot of effort to catch up to the few
Sure.
coyotes that there are. So it's really hard to put a number on that.
Would you have an idea in Fremont County?
I wouldn't, not off the top of my head, I just haven't been here long enough.
I can probably tell you the budget, but then that covers everything.
Right.
That they were doing, as far as breaking it down to just coyotes, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
And,
Any other questions out there? Go ahead.
To kind of go off her chronic wasting disease one, so our area is heavy prevalent. Have you guys had discussions or been approached about mule deer population in this area, or
The only
taking that on
The
in
only
your
interaction,
department?
the only interaction that I've had was outside of the chronic wasting disease, that was trying to increase the fawn production and that, get more deer on the landscape and that. As far as chronic wasting disease, other than the two projects that we supplied a grant to Game and Fish, haven't had any direct.
Talking about the chronic wasting, so Fremont County being one of the first in the state of Wyoming to report chronic wasting disease, have we narrowed it down to area of the training, like was it Riverton Lander, kind of, do we know where that herd had been?
I apologize, I don't have enough information, that's more of a Game and Fish thing where they do wildlife, but, originally it started in Colorado, the first detection was in Colorado. And it's kind of spread throughout the west, I went to Canada, they've been worried about caribou herds up in northern Canada and Alaska. So, it can affect any ungulate, moose, elk, deer, fallow deer. Definitely a scary disease. Back in the back.
You were talking about, disease control. Do you do anything with wild pigeons that move into barns?
So, actually we had one of our trappers just the other day remove some out of Weston County for a producer that was experiencing fecal contamination on their foodstuffs and that, so our trapper went in there. There is an herbicide that we can use to take care of them, but pigeons don't take it up very well. I don't know if they can smell it, detect it. Other birds don't have any sense of smell and they pick it up right away and ingest it, but pigeons, for whatever reason, we haven't had real good luck poisoning the pigeons with it. Our trapper in that area was able to go in, find the roost, and then remove them at night on the roost. And a lot better success that way. With a couple nights, you have them cleared out. But, we do that. Got to get a hold of Mac.
All right.
You said something about, some of the herds having some depredation, the cows. Are the grizzlies playing into that too, or is it the wolves thing?
I think down around Lander, it's been, I would assume mostly wolves. Du Bois, you have more of the grizzly problems. Right now, fishing game is doing all the.
You can't do anything.
I can't do anything about it.
I just wondered what the play was there, between the two of them.
Yeah,
And you get them both, it'd be really
yeah.
devastating.
We've left Ivan with about 3 minutes. Not a lot of time, so.
Okay.
No more questions, we'll get it back.
Yeah, I'm Ivan Laird, I'm the vice chair of the Fremont County Predator Board, and also in attendance is Alan Center, he is on our board. We do have a bounty program going on right now that started the 1st of January this year for people out casual hunting, whatever you want to do, trapping, whatever you do, but anyway, it's $25 a coyote. Is there any more of the papers left?
They're on the table.
Yeah, there was some papers that I brought that outlines the program, and they're over in the Trapper's booth. If you pick one up, take it with you if that's something you're interested in. Several people on there that can invoice them coyotes. There is the parameters of, we'd like to see them 72 hours after they've been either brought out of a snare or killed, so that we can keep that going and not let it get a great big buildup of them and then bring them to us, and we try to figure out what's going on with them. So, but anyway, that program will go on until the money runs out. We budget money every year for that. This budget, our budgets on that runs from July 1st to June 30th. And so once we get to July 1st, well then there'll be potentially another sum of money available to go into the fall with. So the bounty season is from January 1st to September 30th this year. We added 2 months to it this year upon request of some producers and some trappers that was interested in trying to do a better job of having some compensation for the coyotes. A good pelt right now, they're telling me that's all cased out, which is ready to go, is only worth about $14, $15. And there's just not a lot of reason to go ahead and case them out with that little value in them. So, anybody have any questions?
So just one comment. The coyotes need to be taken in Fremont County, correct?
Yeah, they need to be taken in Fremont County, yes. Thanks, Jared.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
So individual ranchers contact you guys as a predator board if they want to have someone, a trapper, come out. Do they go through you, or can they hire their own trapper?
On their private property, they can do whatever they want.
Okay,
You just contact you
just
after.
after the fact.
Yeah, see that?
So if they're gonna get a bounty, so they hired an individual landowner, hires a trapper on their own, and then they can come and get the bounty
Yes,
or whatever.
yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. On the bounty sheet, like I said, there's several that's on the board that will invoice them for you. Up in your neck of the woods, Alicia Rux is the new board member up there, so she will be able to do that. So, what is there? Alan Centers with Wildlife. We have Vic Mossbrucker out of Riverton here with Wildlife. Hollis Gibbons out of Arapahoes with Beef. Rob Crofts is our president, and he's here out of Riverton. Beth Evans out of Pavilion area is also, but she does not invoice, but she is a member of the board. And then the other sheep producer is Rob Phelps down at Lyside Country, then myself, and then Alicia. Who did I miss? Anybody? But anyway, we're a 9-member board.
oh, the new gentleman from lives
Kevin
up on
Mayer
South Pass.
is the new sportsman representative, and he lives in Atlantic City.
And then Ivan, what do they have to do? They have to bring the whole coyote to you within so
Yes.
many hours?
Yes, bring the whole coyote to us, and we'll go through it. We'll have you cut the ears off of it so that it can't be redone somewhere else. I mean, I know that saying might be picking a little bit, but there is people out there that will take advantage of the system, and I'm not pointing at any one of you.
Nobody in this room anyway.
No,
They're all
I can tell. Well, maybe Chance.
Hey, Ivan, is that the only or the last county funded bounty in the state?
It is.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that other state, when we go down for our funding hearing in May in Casper, there's always a lot of questions how successful our bounty program is. So, yeah, we get a lot of questions on it.
Do you know roughly how many they bounded last year?
You know, I think since, and I'm only pulling this off the top of my head, we had $8,000 available, and when we started into it in January, I think we had about 6,000. So we had bountied $2,000 worth at $20, at $20 or $25 a head. So
I think last count we had about 3,000 left. We're in that ballpark right now.
yeah.
With predators, specifically coyotes being allowed to be hunted at night, are you expecting an increase in bounties collected?
We are seeing an increase right now as far, but it's, the increase we're seeing right now is, the fact that we're 2 months early to what we normally are. As far as, I haven't determined, the ones that I have invoiced myself and Lander have not been, night kills. What I'm seeing an influx in is your snares. It seems like snares are the hot item this time of the year with the snowpack and different things. That snares is where I'm seeing the increase in the number of coyotes. Okay, and I'll be here the rest of the day, so if you have any questions, don't be afraid to run me down, and
If you've got happy comments, talk to me. If you're mad, talk to Ivan.
I can handle it. Okay, well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jerry.